Sonata number 3. Through the composition of Sonata number 3, if we are intelligent observers, we can learn quite a lot about Beethoven as a young man of 25 and his environment. Beethoven is growing up in an environment, a European environment, a German-speaking environment, where the piano is an instrument in a process of evolution. We are speaking about 1795, okay? We take 100 years later, we go to 1897. This is the year Brahms died. Did you realize that since the death of Brahms, 1897, until today, the piano has doubled its volume and intensity? This is 1897. We go backwards to 1795. The piano in this period is already a little bit developed than it was in 1750, just a few years earlier. The piano already has more dynamics, it has more volume. The piano was a very, very quiet instrument, if it has any dynamics at all, or if it was louder, it had just one intensity and that's all. No matter how you press the key, it would always be the same intensity. 1795, we are beginning to have pianos that have a bigger range, a bigger difference between piano and forte, between pianissimo and fortissimo. The keyboard itself is very limited. This is the highest note on Beethoven's piano in 1795. Today we have all the way here. This is the lowest note. Today we have, it goes way lower. The keyboard is limited, it will grow in Beethoven's lifetime. The intensity will grow. There is a lot of excitement about this instrument. It is developing. People are discovering new ways to write for it, new ways to build it, new ways to make it sound more, to make more the differences. It's a time of huge excitement. 1795 is 4 short years after the death of Mozart. Mozart was a huge virtuoso. He used to go everywhere as a young man and dazzle people not only with his writing but also with his playing. His piano concerti are way famous. Beethoven is asking himself, if Mozart can do it, why can't I do it also? At age 25 he's not yet writing a concerto. It will come very, very shortly after that. But when we listen to Sonata number 3, we think that this is a blueprint for a concerto. It is written really in concerto style. What do I mean? First of all, he's covering all of the keyboard with dazzling and rippling fast notes and effects since the beginning, since the very first measure and throughout. It's a very, very virtuoso. Sometimes, you know, in a concerti for orchestra, we have a moment that all of the orchestra is stopping on a chord and the pianist is playing alone, an improvisatory passage. We call it a cadenza. We have that also in the third sonata, in the first movement. It's like a concerto. You hear really the orchestral effects. You hear sometimes singing in some beautiful themes. You can imagine flutes or clarinets singing it. These warm themes you can imagine really being played by the woodwinds. But then you have like rippling effects that you can really imagine a solo virtuoso playing and making a dialogue with the orchestra. You can really hear that. And then there's some, the structure is huge. This first movement is very, very long, especially for such an early work. This is the first published work for the piano. Already he writes a sonata movement that is huge in the dimensions, and there are many things happening. The second movement, the slow movement, is one of the most beautiful piano pieces you ever heard in your life. We don't think regularly about Beethoven as a romantic composer, of course not the early Beethoven. This second movement, believe me, it is nothing to feel inferior than the most beautiful music that you know from Chopin, Schumann and Brahms. I know what I'm talking about. I play a lot of these composers. I have a lot of the materials online. Something like this second movement you don't hear every time. Anybody who knows the concerto literature of Beethoven knows the second movement of the third piano concerto. Please. Slow movement of the Emperor Concerto, the number 5. It's like after he shows off all of the possible virtuoso effects and runs and everything, and then he says, you know, with these big dimensions, we can have a big calm. we need to understand that Beethoven is at the dawn of the Romantic period, and every single composer of the 19th century is admiring Beethoven, is trying to imitate Beethoven, is trying to reach the heights that Beethoven reached in expression. If we think, for example, about the slow movement of the Ninth Symphony of Dvorak from the New World, anybody knows this music? You know. We go to the second movement, again we have the same expansive color, you know. Anybody who knows this music, you can recognize, my daughter knows that of course. They can recognize the same air of expansion and peace. And we will find that already in this blueprint in the slow movement of the third sonata. It is in nothing inferior. Yes, tell me? It's very interesting.
No,
I want to know.
You remind me an emission that we see on the television, and it is about Hegel. And he explained everything about the music, and you are like
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It's really nice.
Oh, I'm very happy to hear. I'm very happy to hear that I'm not totally boring everybody in the audience. That's very nice feedback. Very nice, really. And we go back to the theme. This slow movement, believe me, it is in nothing inferior from this great concerti and the great symphonies that I was mentioning before, even though it is only for the piano. Beethoven is still writing only for the piano. No doubt he already sees himself as what he's going to become in the decades that are going to follow. After that we have a scherzo in the last movement, and I have not too much to say about them. The scherzo, okay, I don't really want to speak a lot. I will just say that very, very briefly. Scherzo is an Italian word meaning a joke. Generally, in sonata form or in symphonies, we used to have a dance, a minuetto, right? In the first sonata, we had a very beautiful minuetto. Minuetto is an elegant dance. It's relatively slow generally. With Beethoven, the minuetto is replaced with a scherzo, the musical joke. For some reason, he decided that the minuetto maybe is a little bit too slow for modern times, because we are entering the 19th century already, so this is very modern in the eyes of Beethoven, and we throw the slow minuet, and instead we write a scherzo. It's a joke. This scherzo that you will hear in the third sonata is really kind of funny, it's really kind of comical. It's amazing that these three sonatas, they're all released under the same batch, Opus 2. We have a minuetto in the first one. Kind of a brooding dance, very serious, very formal, and in the same opus number, the same year, 1795, the same publication, Sonata number 3, in the same collection, and instead of this really thing, you get the tone of that, right? And suddenly we have something like that. What a difference. It takes the same rubric, you know? It takes the same place. Minuetto, scherzo, but what a difference. I mean, you can really hear him laughing. It's really kind of a joke, you know? Very different from a minuetto. And after that we have the finale. I don't really want to speak about it. I'm speaking so much already, but I have to say some things, really. This finale, it really serves as a model. You know the third violin sonata by Brahms. Some people here in the audience have played that. You know this music? And then after that you have this beginning, virtuoso, fast and everything, and suddenly we have this theme that is very slow and it goes into low ranges of the piano. Very long, and it's a total contrast. We listen to this finale of the third sonata by Beethoven. It begins virtuoso. And after that, we get, notice the similarity, we get something like this. Same three chords at the end. And then Brahms is starting with them. is finishing with the same 3 notes, in the same key, exactly the same thing, carbon copy. So this is about the influence that Beethoven has on the later composers. I imagine Brahms sitting in his studio, already a big composer with huge credit, but when he's writing that, for one moment, he feels like a Beethoven. Beethoven Sonata number 3 for piano and do major, right after the intermission. I was trying actually something that is advised by Daniel Barenboim. I was doing this on purpose a little bit. I was trying it for the first time. I was curious if this advice is any good. This Sonata number 3, it begins with a very tricky passage for the hands. It's very quick, and you're supposed to play something that is really not convenient to play. You see? These double notes there. Not very comfortable. It's very quiet, it's pianissimo. So Daniel Barenboim says if you have to play this sonata in public, go into the hall when the public is still going around and making a noise, and start playing it then, so nobody will pay attention if you have a problem with that. And I know this advice for many years, but I never actually tried it, so you didn't know this, right? You didn't. Very good. But you see, now I have to do it anyway because of the recording. We didn't take that into account. So we see how it goes. We pray. We pray for this double third.